She paid her family's bills for 9 years, then her mom made a toast that erased her entire life. What happened next left everyone speechless. It happened just after the toast. In a room of 52 relatives, half of whom couldn't pick me out of a lineup, my mother lifted her wineglass, locked eyes with my sister, and declared, "This is the daughter who's always loved us." Then, without so much as a glance in my direction, she added, "The other one? She's never lifted a finger." I smiled. And left. That smile, I remember the way it strained at the edges, a performance for the crowd, a shield I didn't even know I still wore. No one stopped me. No one followed. 15 hours later, I woke to 38 missed calls. The lodge smelled like sugar and nostalgia, spilled lemonade, barbecue smoke, floorboards warmed by decades of sun. Red checkered tablecloths fluttered beneath the ceiling fans. Toddlers zigzagged beneath folding chairs, faces sticky with frosting. Somebody had dragged a speaker onto the porch, and Stevie Nicks was wailing loud enough to crack glass. For the first time in years, I let myself believe this might not be a disaster. People greeted me like I belonged. A cousin I barely recognized handed me a glass of sangria. My uncle slapped my back and joked about how I hadn't changed. I caught sight of my dad by the potato salad, laughing like he'd just remembered how. And in that brief, flickering moment, I thought, maybe this will be fine. Maybe there won't be tears in the car this year. Then I saw Susan. Barefoot in a white sundress, spinning from table to table like she was hosting her own wedding. She clutched a picture frame wrapped in tissue, tied with a yellow ribbon, probably scented. I didn't think twice about it. I'd brought a gift too, a dinner reservation at that overpriced French place our parents always mentioned but never treated themselves to. I'd slipped the card beneath their dinner plate, quiet and unseen. That was the plan, simple gestures, polite laughter, maybe a story or two. No speeches. But then Susan stood. Someone handed her a microphone. Why, I'll never understand, and she gave this breathy, tinkling laugh, like she'd been caught off guard. The kind of laugh that screams rehearsal. "Sorry to interrupt," she chirped, clapping twice like she was calling a kindergarten class to order. "I just have something small for our amazing parents." She turned, offered the frame to Mom like it was a crown of laurels. A collage. Snapshot after snapshot of birthdays, backyard barbecues, cheap beach vacations. The three of them smiling, sand on their faces, time frozen in candied memories. Not a trace of me. Not even in the margins. Mom stared at it. Her lips parted, then slowly curved. She stood, glass raised high. "This," she said, beaming at Susan, "is the daughter who's always loved us." A few people clapped. Someone sighed dreamily. Then, louder, with a certainty that fractured the room. "The other one, she's never lifted a finger." A hush. So complete you could hear a fork hit the floor. And it did. No one laughed. No one jumped in with a joke. No one said my name. I didn't scan their faces, I didn't need to. The silence told me everything. The kind of silence that closes a door forever. I stood. Picked up my bag. Walked out. No tears. No scenes. No second chances. Just this heavy, bone-deep knowing, if I stayed even a second longer, I'd never be able to forget the sound of everyone choosing not to speak for me. The drive back was 2 hours of headlight blur and unspoken things. No music, no calls. Just a quiet list forming in my mind, sharp and damning. How many times had I sent them money? How many overdue bills had I paid without a word? How many birthdays had I worked through to help keep their house afloat? 9 years. I paid their mortgage for 9 years. And in the eyes of the people who raised me, I was a ghost. But fine. I smiled. And I left. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing itself off the counter. 38 missed calls. The first came in at 6:17 a.m., which was rich, considering no one cared where I'd gone the night before. A handful were from Mom. A couple from Dad. But the real showstopper? 14 from Susan. 14. The same sister who only remembered I existed when it was tax season. now suddenly dialing like her life depended on it. I brewed coffee with hands steadier than they should have been. Sat on the edge of the kitchen counter and watched the screen flash again and again, like it was begging me to care. I didn't pick up. Not yet. Not until I knew what they were really calling for. Regret? Damage control? Or maybe just someone to pay the next bill. Eventually, I answered. Not out of mercy, just morbid curiosity. I wanted to hear how they'd open the show. Oh, thank God, Susan breathed, like she hadn't called 14 times in the last 2 hours. We didn't know where you went. Are you okay? I took a slow sip of coffee. Let the silence stretch. Never better. She didn't catch the sarcasm, or pretended not to. Well, we can't get on the boat. I frowned. What boat? She exhaled, already irritated. The group cruise. The sightseeing thing this morning. We showed up and they said it was cancelled. Something about a declined card? Ah, I said lightly. That'd be it. There was a pause. I could hear her blinking. Wait. That was your card? Yep. Cancelled it last night. Dead silence. You could hear her gears grinding. But why? She asked finally, like it hadn't been broadcast to half the family already. Mom and Dad are freaking out. I leaned against the counter, one hand wrapped around the mug's heat. Because Mom stood up in front of 52 people and said I've never lifted a finger. So I thought, why not live up to the reputation? Silence again. Longer, heavier. Okay, but the whole trip. Covered, I said. By me. Lodging too. You cancelled a cabin? It was in your name. They don't even have a ride back. Well, I said, soft and slow, sounds like someone's going to have to buy them a ticket. I don't have the money, she snapped, indignant now. That's all right, I said, voice calm, almost gentle. You're the daughter who's always loved them. I'm sure they'll understand. And I hung up. No triumphant swell. No gloating. Just stillness. After 6 years of wiring money like clockwork, mortgage, utilities, groceries, that magical dentist bill that reappeared every 6 months, it felt strange to feel nothing. Not anger. Not relief. Just silence. A silence that finally matched how invisible I'd been all this time. They never knew the full amount. Not really. I never itemized. Never told them, hey, that family dinner you're enjoying? I paid for it. Never asked for credit. Never wanted applause. I just wanted to be seen. Just wanted my place at the table. But apparently, a glittery photo collage meant more. You want to know the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. That moment, Mom raising her glass, naming Susan as the daughter who always loved them, it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from 1,000 little cracks in the foundation that had finally given out. Susan was always the star. The luminous one. The performer. The one who cried pretty and handed out handmade cards that left trails of glitter in your hair and carpet for months. They adored it. Me? I was the constant. I got the job. Paid the loans. Moved 2 hours away and called ahead before visiting. Helped Mom refinance the mortgage when Dad's pride kept him from asking. When they wanted laughter, they called Susan. When the basement flooded, they called me. She gave them time. I gave them stability. Guess which one photographed better? It wasn't always this uneven. Back when we were kids, they'd say things like, you girls are so different, but both so special. That stopped around the time I turned 24 and started paying for things they couldn't. By then, Susan was between jobs, drifting from acting, to yoga, to beadwork. She lived with them nearly a decade after college, rent-free. They called it finding her way. I once paid their property tax to keep them from losing the house. But sure. I'd never lifted a finger. And the thing is, I never asked for anything back. Not gifts, not fanfare, not even acknowledgement. But standing there at the reunion, listening to my mother declare my absence in front of a crowd, like I'd never been part of the story, I felt something inside me fracture. It wasn't just what she said. It was how no one flinched. How everyone just nodded. Like it tracked. Like, of course Susan was the one who was always there. And me? Just a shadow passing through, useful when needed, forgettable the rest of the time. So when I got home, I didn't cry. I logged in. Every auto transfer, every scheduled payment, gone. Mortgage support, cancelled. Grocery stipends, done. The gas card I paid off monthly, cut in half and dropped in the trash. The backup account I used to wire emergency funds when the furnace just died again, closed. Even the dentist bill due the next day, I let it bounce. And it wasn't spite. It wasn't even anger. It was clarity. If they wanted to forget me, I'd help them do it properly. If I was going to be invisible, then I'd disappear all the way. If they wanted me gone, they could have at least paid for the silence. But no, I'd funded their comfort like a ghost with a credit score. No thanks, no recognition, and now, no more. I could have explained. Drafted an email with line items, dates, totals. I could have called to say, you crossed a line. But they didn't deserve a graceful exit. They'd chosen their moment, in front of a room full of witnesses. Let them sit with the fallout in private. The next day? Nothing. Not even a half-hearted "you okay?" Not from her. Not from him. Just this collective, suspicious quiet, like someone had passed around the advice, let her cool off. As though I were sulking over a misplaced napkin, not recoiling from a decade of being used like a spare battery. By Monday, they were back home. I only knew because Dad's Facebook updated. Great weekend with family. Feeling blessed. No mention of the daughter who vanished midway through dinner. I imagined them unlocking the front door, stepping inside, and feeling the shift before they saw it. The subtle unease of something missing. No heat clicking on. No fridge humming with stocked groceries. No blinking alert from the prepaid electric. The mortgage payment? Late. Maybe Mom frowned at her phone, watching a bill bounce. Maybe Dad cursed at the thermostat before realizing it wasn't broken, just unpaid. And the emergency credit card? The one in my name? Declined. Not that I was stalking them. I just happened to check my inbox. Failed payment. Declined transaction. Transfer unsuccessful. It read like poetry. By late afternoon, the shared household account I'd let them use showed 2 failed login attempts. I hadn't touched it in years, not really, but the moment I saw unrecognized device, I locked it. That night, the knock came. I didn't answer immediately. Just stood there, one hand on the hallway wall, heart strangely calm. I could see the silhouette through the glass. 2 of them. And then? Barbara. Her voice. Small, cracked at the edges. She always knew how to make herself sound breakable. I opened the door. She looked like she hadn't slept. Wind-blown hair, cardigan too thin for the night. No mascara, probably on purpose. My father stood behind her, arms folded, expression unreadable. "Can we come in?" she asked. "No," I said, without apology. "But if you've got something to say, this is fine." She hesitated, like the porch offended her. "We just wanted to clear things up." "Of course." "What happened at the reunion?" she began, trailing off. "You mean when you made a toast to Susan for being the daughter who loves you, and reduced me to an unpaid intern in front of 50 people? That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you said. She just gave us that beautiful photo," she rushed on. Everyone was emotional. "It wasn't planned. She's been going through such a hard time lately." "She's always going through a hard time," I snapped. "And I've always been the one expected to fix it." She flinched. "She was trying to do something sweet," my mother added quietly. "Right. And I was just collateral damage? No one meant to hurt you." "But you did." There was a beat of silence, the kind that pulls the oxygen out of the air. "I've paid over $150,000 for this family," I said, not yelling, not even angry, just stating a fact. Mortgage, utilities, food, medical bills. Susan's debt when she had a panic attack about credit collectors. Her lips parted. Dad finally looked at me like he'd heard something new. "You never told us that," he said. "No," I said. "I didn't." "Because we didn't ask for it," he added. "You never had to," I replied. That was the point. And there it was, the truth neither of them could look in the eye. It was easier to accept the money than acknowledge the giver. Easier to praise Susan, the daughter who needed them, than the one who became the safety net they never thanked. My mom shifted her gaze to the dying plant beside the door, like maybe if she stared hard enough, she'd disappear into the soil. Then she said, "So, this is about money?" I actually laughed. Sharp and joyless. "This is about being erased. Over and over. Until the only thing left of me was a name on your bills." She blinked fast, like she wanted to argue but had lost the script. "You made your choice," I said. "You toasted it." "But you're taking this so personally," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, stepping back, ready to end this. "That tends to happen when you realize your absence didn't even cause a ripple." I closed the door before she could speak again. That's when she softened, voice like paper, eyes wide with practiced fragility. "We just want to make things right," she said. "We love you." "Then maybe," I replied, "you should have said that, instead of rewriting the last 15 years of my life with a toast and a photo collage." She nodded, slowly, like she'd taken the hit. Like maybe she understood. But then came the inevitable deflection. "Susan didn't mean to hurt you." "She didn't say it." "You did." That silenced her. Finally. I let the quiet settle between us like fog. Then I said, "If you're here to ask for help with the house, I'm not the daughter you come to for that anymore." And I closed the door. 2 days later, Susan showed up. She rang the doorbell twice in quick succession, like she was short on time, or short on patience. When I opened the door, she didn't wait. Just stepped past me like it was still a decade ago, like she still had the right to my space. "Do you even understand what you're doing to them?" she asked. I shut the door behind her, slow and measured. "You'll have to narrow that down. They're spiraling. The mortgage is due in 3 days and they're short. Completely short." "Huh," I said, with exactly the energy of checking the weather. "You didn't even give them a heads up." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean after Mom announced to the world that I've never done anything for them?" Susan rolled her eyes. She didn't mean it like that. She just got caught up. "Then maybe the moment should handle the bills." "You're being cruel." "No," I said. "I'm being accurate. You all claimed I never helped. I'm just adjusting accordingly. They don't have the money. You live there." She hesitated. "You don't pay rent. You don't split the bills. But you've got time for crafting sentimental collages and hashtagging healing journeys on Sundays. That's not fair." Neither was the speech. She looked like she wanted to scream. Or cry. Or maybe just slam a door and make me feel like the bad guy again. But she held it in. "There are parents," she said finally. "You're just going to watch them fall apart." "No," I said. "I'm going to watch you finally hold something up. You're the daughter who's always loved them, remember?" And then I saw it. Just a flicker. Barely a moment. But it was there, a hairline crack in the performance. A twitch in her jaw. A glint of something that looked like shame, or maybe just the sudden weight of expectations she'd never carried before. "They need help." "Then help them," I said. "Get a job." She left without slamming the door, which was new. No parting shot. No tears. Just quiet retreat. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because anything was fixed. Not because apologies had been offered. But because, for the first time in years, I wasn't the one holding everything up. And I wasn't lifting a finger. They went public. Of course they did. It started with a Facebook post. Moms, naturally. A smiling photo from the reunion, carefully cropped, carefully curated. Family means everything. Even when some people forget that. Then came the chorus of comments. She walked out over that speech? Seriously? I mean, it wasn't even rude. I didn't say a word. I just posted the receipts, made the post public, and closed the app. Then I turned out the light, crawled beneath the covers, and let the quiet swallow the room. By morning, it had begun. The original reunion post? Gone. So were 3 follow-up defenses, scrubbed like footprints in wet cement. And then came the messages. From my aunt. I had no idea. You've always been so quiet about everything. From Christopher, the cousin who used to call me boring for not showing up to family karaoke nights. That's insane. If I were you, I'd never speak to them again. From my mother? Nothing. But from Susan. We need to talk. The next time I saw her, she looked wrecked. Dark circles. Wrinkled clothes. She held a reusable grocery bag like it weighed too much. There was something ghost-like about her, like the air had been knocked out of her for weeks. Can we talk? She asked, breath shallow. No. Hello. I stepped aside anyway. She entered without waiting. Some habits die slower than others. They made me get a job, she blurted, like she was announcing a betrayal. I raised an eyebrow. Welcome to adulthood. I'm serious, Barbara. So am I. She dropped the bag on the counter. It clunked, cans, ramen, store-brand paper towels. Nothing fresh. Nothing alive. They said I have to help now, she muttered. Because you're gone. Because you were the one holding everything together. I said nothing. They didn't say it like that, she added, too quickly. But, yeah. They're struggling. They chose you, I said. At the reunion. In front of everyone. You were the daughter who loved them. I was just trying to do something nice. You succeeded, I said flatly. It was lovely. All ribbon and nostalgia. I didn't know Mom was going to say that. And when she did? I was caught off guard. No, I said. You liked it. She opened her mouth, then closed it. They need help, she said softly. Then help them. I can't afford everything. I finally looked at her. Not just glanced, looked. She was thinner. Paler. The glow she once carried, manufactured or not, was gone. Her jaw trembled once before she steadied it. Her hands, always gesturing, now stayed clenched at her sides. She was unraveling. Try harder, I said, and closed the door behind her. They came in a trio the next time. My mother. My father. Susan trailing behind, head down. They didn't knock. Just stood at the base of the porch steps like they weren't sure if they were still allowed to exist in my orbit. I watched from the window, invisible again, but this time, by choice. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. My mother's voice was small. We're sorry. She looked older than I remembered. My father stared past me, as if the words were too hard to look at. Susan said nothing. We shouldn't have said those things, my mother continued. It was thoughtless. We didn't mean it. No, I said. You meant it. You just didn't expect it to cost you anything. She dropped her gaze. Susan spoke, her voice brittle. It was the moment. You know how Mom gets. And me. I liked hearing it. That's on me. But we didn't mean it. My mom added softly, not really. I nodded, once. Slowly. Doesn't matter, I said. You made your choice. And then, quieter, firmer. You need to understand something. You stood in front of 52 people and declared I'd never lifted a finger, while I was still paying your mortgage. Your utilities. Your prescriptions. While my name was on your car loan. Your insurance. Your safety net. I exhaled. I paid $147,880 to disappear. They said nothing. The wind moved in the trees. A bird called, unnoticed. My mother's jaw trembled. My father looked at the sky. Susan stared at the cracks in my porch wood. I waited, for shouting, excuses, tears. A last-ditch script. But there was only silence. And in that silence, the weight lifted. I'm not angry, I said. I'm just done. And I shut the door. Months passed. Word got around. Susan moved out. She lasted longer than I thought. But the bills added up. The strain caught her, errands, utilities, late-night calls she once ignored. One day, she packed her things and left. No forwarding address. Shortly after, my parents sold the house. The house I held up for nearly a decade. The one they said I never lifted a finger to save. They took what they could and downsized. A small rental. Thin walls. Flickering lights. I didn't see it for myself, but my cousin drove past and sent a photo. I didn't reply. I didn't visit. Not because I was bitter. Not anymore. Because I had finally left the stage they kept dragging me onto. Some people believe family is forever. Others learn it's only as strong as the respect you're given. I didn't lose them. They lost the version of me that stayed silent. And I let her go.